Ladies and gentlemen, I wanted to say nice to see you all refreshed and strengthened after a lunch break, but I cannot actually say it because there are some people missing here. But I hope that our colleagues who are online in this virtual reality, they are already present. I hope that you also have the opportunity to have a wonderful lunch. So I would say that we will not prolong and we will start our next panel. The title of the presentation that we will see is Stooped Labor. Professor John Rosenkranz. Is my pronunciation good? Is it stooped labor? Stooped labor. And this presentation will be given by Professor John Rosenkranz from Colorado State University, Colorado School of Public Health, United States. The floor is yours.
Thank you. First, I want to say thank you to ISSA for inviting me to the conference to speak. It's quite an honor for me, and it's a pleasure. This is my first ISSA colloquium or conference. And yes, I am a professor at Colorado State University, and my background is primarily in engineering. So today I'm going to take, unlike the morning presentations, I'm going to take more of a micro approach than a macro approach. And so bear with me there. As most of you know, if you've walked out into a field and have seen farming, you'll see stooped postures. And what I define a stooped posture is bending over at the waist with a rounded back and picking things off of the ground. And that's a lot of agriculture that we see. This is just one of the projects that I'm in charge of. We have a federally funded agricultural health and safety center at my university, and I'm part of that program. And we also work quite closely with other universities. This project, we're doing work with the University of Sassari in Sardinia, as well as the University of Milan, San Pablo Hospital, as well as the International Center for Rural Health there. These are some of my colleagues listed here on this project. Many of them are students or former students. And what I want to say as a professor, what I do is when we're out there collecting data, doing research in the field, I have all of my students and the folks working for me also do the labor while we're out there so they have a better understanding of the process. As a researcher, when you're out there working in the fields alongside the farm workers, they talk to you. And who knows better about their work than the field workers? And so if you're interested in interventions, developing interventions and ways to improve health and safety, you better talk to those who are the experts, not the researchers at the universities, not the policymakers, but rather the workers. And so that's an approach that we take. Okay, first slide, please. As you can see, stooped postures, as I say, rounded shoulders, the lumbar portion of the back bent over, at least 60 degrees. That's how we define a stooped posture. And you'll see this all over the world. And you've seen this for centuries if you've been around as long as I have. Here are some stooped postures of workers in a strawberry field in California. Again, it's the rounded shoulders, it's bent over at the lumbar spine, and typically doing work at ground level. All over the world. It's a big problem. It's a big issue. Okay, so what's the problem? Well, It's a large segment of the agricultural workers, and this stooped posture leads to high risk of developing low back disorders. We know this. Risk of low back pain is associated with long periods of sustained stooped or bent over postures. We know that. And the lifetime prevalence of low back disorders is nearly 90% among agricultural workers throughout the world. Even if you don't do agricultural work, many of us, who here has ever had back pain? Yeah. And some of you may have had a history in agriculture, but maybe not. But it's an issue with the population. It's even more of a problem with agricultural workers, and thus my focus on musculoskeletal disorders. This project that I'm going to show you right now is just one of many projects that we have. Within our agricultural center, pause there on the slides. Within our agricultural center, I run a program called Community Initiated Projects, where we give funding to community partners in agricultural health and safety to augment their efforts to prevent injuries and illnesses. So we fund organizations, farmers organizations, producer organizations that have contact with the end user, that is the farmer. So in terms of the question for this project on stoop posture is, how can we measure or quantify these postures that lead to exposure of biomechanical stress on the low back while they're doing these stooping tasks? And I think that quantification is critical in reducing the risk, as well as assessing the effectiveness of interventions. And so I'm very keenly interested in looking at ways to quantify some of these postures so that we can develop better interventions. One of the methods that we're using, or one of the answers, possible answers that we have here, are these new wearable measurement systems. These are very small chips that have accelerometers and heart rate monitors in them that we can attach to the workers quite easily, that they can wear under a shirt. And these are becoming more and more popular. They even have these sensors now that are embedded into the shirt, and we use those as well. But with this project, we've used this one called the Zephyr bioharness, and you can see we're putting one on a worker here, and this happens to be in Sardinia. Next slide, there we go. This is the actual module. It's very small, and it fits on a belt around the upper part of the waist. And because it has an accelerometer, we can look at the motion relative to gravity. Not only can we measure trunk postures, but we can measure heart rate variability, breathing rate, as well as an estimate of core temperature. And so we have a number of variables that we can measure with this monitor. Next. I'm taking you out to the field here. This is an example of our calibration procedure. You can see we probably have 8 or 10 workers lined up there, and they each have one of these bioharnesses on, and we're doing a calibration procedure, and those are a couple of the investigators there instructing them. And of course, most of all of them speak Spanish. In this case, this is in Colorado, in the United States. And so we need someone, of course, that speaks the language. And this is the calibration procedure. Next. So it's a pretty fast process, actually, to put this on and to get it ready. We began this study 2.5 years ago, and we collected data here in Italy with strawberries as well as melanzane or eggplant. And it was going quite well. And then the pandemic hit and we stopped for 2 years. We came back this summer and did a lot of work in Colorado. And we picked up workers there that were harvesting onions, corn, zucchini, collards, lettuce, spinach, cilantro. And then this, on the far upper right-hand corner, those are just weeds. Harvesting, pulling or getting rid of weeds is an issue also, especially on organic farms that don't use herbicides. And as I said before, we did strawberries, which are in the lower right there, and eggplant in Sardinia. The rest of these vegetables were in Colorado. And in total, we sampled about 8 to 10 farm workers for each crop that we worked with. This is a short video here. I just want you to take a look at this. This is in Colorado. These are workers. This worker is picking lettuce or collards, a leafy green product here. And you can see this is an actual speed here, how fast this particular worker is moving. The workers that we're monitoring each have a number on their back. He's working so fast, it's actually hard to see what he's actually doing in real time. In slow motion, you'll see, we'd see much better that he's cutting and he's tying, and then he's putting down the bunch of this leafy green to be picked up later. You can see in the background, and now him running, across the field. What we're concerned about, though, and what we're looking at is his posture. And if you've noticed over the last 30 seconds, this video has been playing, he hasn't stood up once. In fact, he doesn't stand up for about 20 minutes. And so we're quite concerned about these postures, these stooped postures, that they're in for a long period of time. Okay, next slide, please. The variables that we're particularly interested in is the magnitude of what we call trunk flexion, that is bending forward. Because we know the further you bend forward, the greater the forces on the low back. We're also interested in the frequency that they're going up and down, okay? So bending down, coming back up to a neutral position. We call that one cycle. And we also are interested in the duration of time that they spend in each one of those 4 posture categories that you see there. The 0 position, so the neutral position, 0 to 30, 30 to 60, and then beyond 60, which we consider a stooped, we consider that a stooped posture. So of course, we want to keep them out of that red zone as much as possible. Okay, next, please. Okay, what I want you to look at here, 2 videos playing simultaneously, and you can follow these. Of course, one is eggplant and the other is our strawberries. So think about how long they're actually spending down and how much time are they spending coming back up. And of course, it depends upon the worker. And I'm going to ask you, or you can ask yourself, which task would I rather be doing? The strawberry picking or the melanzane picking? Raise your hand if you'd rather be picking melanzane, eggplant. Absolutely. And the reason why is because the time spent bent over, that prolonged stooped posture. Now, we all know that those postures aren't good, but we must be able to measure them and understand each of the variables that go into this. It's like if you take an antibiotic. It's not enough to know that it's penicillin, is it? No, you need to know, what is the dosage of the penicillin? How frequently do you take the penicillin and for what duration? We need to think about the same variables in our exposure assessment of stooped postures. Just bending over a few times isn't so bad, but if it's throughout the day and you're down there for a long period of time, that's a greater risk. And if we're going to think about vision 0, we need to think about reducing risk. Okay, we aren't going to eliminate every risk, but we need to reduce the risk. Okay, next slide, please. We'll show you just some of the results that we get when we analyze this data. We sample each worker for about 2 hours. In this case, it looks like a bit over an hour and a half, 100 minutes for eggplant and almost nearly 100 for strawberries. What's different is the frequency. That is how often they go down and come back up. Much more frequent for the eggplant because they can only carry 4 eggplants in a hand before they put them in a bucket. Whereas with the strawberries, they have to bend down and fill a plastic container. It takes longer, and you can see they have fewer cycles. Next. And because they have fewer cycles, you can see for strawberries, they're down there for 48, nearly 50 seconds, where it's about half of that for the eggplant. And then the maximum amount of flexion per cycle. Next, there you go. The eggplant workers, maximum averages 82 degrees, whereas they're beyond 90 degrees for the strawberries. So this is the kind of data we can get from these microsensors. And this allows us then to evaluate the intervention. Next. Here's some data from those posture categories. So I've divided up their 100 or so minutes of doing this task. And this is the average for each of the groups. You can see the strawberry workers over on the far right-hand side, they spend the majority of their time in that category 4 posture. Whereas the the eggplant workers spend most of their time in categories 1 and 2. And so our focus here really needs to be on the strawberry workers and what to do there. Okay, next, please. Okay, I want you to look at 2 more tasks. This task, both tasks are doing the same thing, onion picking. Onion picking is done with a harvester, but and these types of onions, because they're so fragile, they're picked by hand. Now look at the difference between the experienced and the new worker. Now we can see this difference, but from an engineering background, I want to know, what is the difference? How do we measure that? Okay, next. Let me show you some of the raw data that we get from these microsensors. Okay, here's the data chart that we see from these workers. And you can see for the new worker, all the time well, when they bend over and go down, the waveform comes up. And so you can see the signal there in orange for the new worker. That means he's at a posture of about 100 degrees most of the time. That's actually for 3 minutes. And then he puts the onions in a bucket. You can see he stands up, and that's why it comes down to the lower level. But then he goes right back up and he holds it there for 3 to 5 minutes. Whereas the experienced worker, we're looking at a 3-minute sample there. He's up and down 30 times in that 3 minutes, or 10 stoops per minute. So he's always going up and down, up and down. That's much less time in a stooped posture that is beyond 60 degrees. And that's what we're looking for. Actually, when the one on, you see him pick up the bucket there, and he's got to stand up. That's that small area there. It says 30 seconds up while bagging. So you can see that in our data here. This is why it's so nice to have data that we can actually use to measure and know exactly where the stooping is happening and how often. Next slide, please. Okay, some of the significant issues that we think we're addressing, really the main one is the quantification of posture metrics, which are necessary for assessing the biomechanical risk. And we want to reduce the risk. And if we want to look and see if our intervention is effective, then we have some measurement systems now. What did Jack Welch say, a famous CEO of, I think it was GE? He said, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. And so we really feel measurement is very helpful. Wearable technology is very feasible with agricultural workers, especially in field conditions. It takes about 10 minutes to put this on, as well as do the calibration. Most owners or farmers were patient with us during that period of time. Some of the significant issues that we didn't address, next slide, is we didn't look at the load. We weren't working with melons, watermelons, or anything heavy, but that would be an issue that we'd have to look at also, because weight is also a significant issue with that kind of posture. Heat stress, we know in the summertime, it's a significant issue that we have not addressed yet, but this is an issue that all the farmers are asking us about. How hot can it be? How long can I work them? Do I need to give them a break during the hottest time of the day? We record their temperatures while we're out there. And when I'm taking the computer and looking at their temperatures, on a day when it's about 37, 38 outside, their temperature, actually probably about 35, their body temperature is up to 39. And so we know it's an issue. In fact, heat stress was an issue on some of my my research crew that I had out there. They had some problems. We also know that immigration and social justice issues are a big problem in agriculture that we're not addressing, but many of you are. Next. Am I out of time? Let me just show you a couple interventions here. This is a very simple one that we look at low cost, low tech, as well as higher cost, high tech interventions, depending upon where they are. Can you go back one, please? If you look at, this is something so simple. This one is a bit built better, but just a cart on wheels. If they had a cart on wheels, they wouldn't have to put things back on the ground. This cart actually has a shade area. They can pull close to them to get in the shade. If you walk outside during the break, you'll see a number of nice pictures of agricultural shots. There's one of someone with tomatoes in the field. And if you notice, where are the boxes of tomatoes in that picture? You'll look at it when you go back out. They're on the ground. And they're taking tomatoes from up here, putting them on the ground, and then they have to pick them up off the ground again. Very low tech. If we don't put things on the ground, we don't have to pick them up again, and it's more efficient. And this is all work design. That's the work I do, is work design. I get the ideas from those that do the work, the farm workers. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor. That was really very interesting, because with this presentation, we are so close to the topic, to the task which is realized by the farmer, by the employee in the farm. And as we are in the panel related to new technologies and digitalization in agriculture, I'm very happy that we find a way to use these new technologies to make this work easier. However, not everything can be covered with the new technology. That is why, to measure such a process, how does it work really, and why people suffer as being in the same position for a long time, and measure this process and find the solutions that will, yes, as you said, find the right work design and will help people. That's really something crucial. Thank you very much for your contribution to this panel. And now we will have another presentation. Mrs. Andrea Engemann, representing a social insurance agency for agriculture, forestry, and horticulture, SV Germany, will present SV Self-Check, Safety and Health in the Enterprise web application. Mrs. Andrea Engemann is health scientist, and from 2018 to 2021, she was managing the nationwide prevention campaign, Culture of Prevention Commitment. I hope you are with us.
Yeah, hello.
Hello.
Yeah, thank you very much to the invitation to the ISSA. Yeah, I'm Andrea Engelmann from the Social Insurance for Agriculture, Forestry and Horticulture in Kassel in Germany. So many greetings from Germany to Rome. Today I would like to introduce you to the SYLFG self-check. And yeah, let's have a look at it. So the SYLFG self-check, Safety and Health at Work, has been available as a free web app to insured companies in the green sector since winter 2020 and can be carried out by conventionally using your own smartphone or tablet. And with a self-check, small and medium-sized companies can particularly find out how important occupational safety and health are in their corporate culture and to what extent they are already integrated into everyday working life. The processing time, including evaluation, takes about 30 minutes, and the self-check consists of 9 short checklists, 4 to maximum 7 questions each, and takes into account different company sizes. Among other things, questions are asked about legal standards and requirements, but also about measures and management responsibility. The answers should provide a general overview of how safe the company is and how much it takes care about the health of its employees. After the evaluation, one has the opportunity to order a compiled culture bag with brochures, work aids, seminar offers, and much more on prevention culture. And the purchase of the culture bag is linked to the complementation of the check. The SYLFG self-check was developed on the basis of the BGN self-check and was adapted for the green sector. The BGN is the Employers Liability Insurance Association for the food, manufacturing and hospitality industry based in Mannheim, Germany. The BGN self-check was developed as part of the research project Prevention Culture 360 Degree. And in addition to the BGN, the project partners were the SHR University in Heidelberg and the BGN Occupational Medical and Safety Service. And the project ran from January 2016 to March 2018. And the aim of the project was to make the concept of prevention culture tangible and to determine the essential organizational cultural factors. And in addition, a screening tool was to be developed with the help with the culture of prevention in the company. Context can be recorded and established to the long term. So the assessment was, what is the status of safety and health in your company? The self-check looks at the following 9 culturally relevant topics in the company. So we have the process and structural questions from the occupational health and safety management and the corporate health management, for example, the certifications. So, and directly after completing the check, the entrepreneur can receive support offers and measures from the SYLFG to improve the areas of safety and health on the basis of the information provided. So let's have a look at this. So this is the start page of the self-check. The self-check is only available in Germany. The button at the bottom right takes you to the next page. After a few introductory words, click on Start and select your sector. You can choose between agriculture, forestry, horticulture, or the municipal sector. Today, I select the agriculture sector. Then I have to choose how many employees my agriculture business has. I choose 1 to 10 from small farms. So the first section deals with questions about the perception of occupational safety and health on the farm on a scale here on the right, from 0, not at all, to 3, fully. I can deposit my answers in the self-check. And parallel to the presentation, I will click on a few numbers so that we can look at the results at the end of the check. And the mean value is calculated at the bottom. You will see it here. So the second chapter is about the standards and specifications or regulations in the company in the areas of occupational safety and health. Have these already been implemented? The third chapter asks about measures that are implemented in the company to improve occupational safety and health, for example, introductions or occupational health care. And the fourth chapter deals with work design. To what extent does the company attach importance to the safe and health-preserving design of workplaces and work organization? The chapter 5, we ask questions about participation and cooperation. To what extent are workers involved in the design and implementation of occupational safety and health? The sixth chapter deals with questions around communication in the workplace. Is there an exchange of information among each other? What channels of communication are in the workplace? In chapter 7, we ask questions about managing responsibility. To what extent do managers take responsibility for safety and health at work? Chapter 8 deals with the social support provided by the manager. To what extent do managers support employees in material, informational, and emotional trust and sympathy respects? And then we have the last chapter. This deals with company integration management. Has occupational integration management been set up for the employees? So we have made it. We have gone through the self-check, and now we are looking at the evaluation. In the spider's web diagram, we can see the results of our fictitious company by means of the mean value. That's the red line, and the green line represents the ideal results. The closer to the green line, the better. This is a very good way of visualizing the areas in which I need to take action in my company. And I can download the documentation of its results as a PDF and receive further information by measures from the S4LFG. So for the next, I have brought you a few key figures. This is a web statistic from December 22 to June 2020. So we have around about 7,644 visits in this time. We have around about 2,500 evaluations were carried out. 34 bounce visitors, that means they leave the website after one page. 66% use a smartphone, and the most clicked sector is agriculture. This is what the culture bag looks like, which every business can order after the self-check. In addition, the entrepreneur can order the S4LFG culture bag after completing the self-check. And with the culture bag, we are giving entrepreneurs a tool with which they can promote the prevention culture in their own company. And companies are particularly successful in prevention when they systematically integrate safety and health into all decisions and actions. Therefore, the S4LFG culture bag contains a selection of practical and informative data that enable entrepreneurs to review and optimize their process and procedures. So, and the focus is on the fields of action, leadership, and communication. Yes, and so you just can try it out to scan with the QR code on the right side. And yeah, thank you very much. You are also welcome to address any questions to my colleague on site in Rome, Dr. Koch, and nice greetings from Germany. See you soon.
Thank you very much. Okay, we will keep the questions for the question and answer section. However, I would like to ask, what was the profile of our farm and how we were evaluated? We keep this question for to Dr. Koch later on. Okay, that was really very interesting. An example of building culture of prevention, and we used to joke that culture is automatically inherent in agriculture, as we have the word culture in the word agriculture. So it is just, just a question to squeeze OSH between agri and culture, and we have agri-OSH culture. Okay, this is a joke. I just wanted to wake you up. Okay, now you can laugh. But the matter does not seem to be so simple in practice. And even we use the possible channels of communication for this purpose, including digitalization, it is rather a process and it needs time. And I think that it seems that it would be good to start prevention education from the youngest years, then we probably will achieve better result in the future. Okay, and another example of OSH promotion, promoting OSH among farmers through a new digital service framework agreements with occupational health service providers and the early intervention network. This topic will be our next presentation, which will be made by Ms. Päivi Wallin, the Farmers Social Insurance Institution, Mela in Finland. Päivi Wallin is the director of Farm Relief and Workability Support Services. Päivi focuses on mental health and well-being. And I would like to add that that Päivi is, how to say, a real farmer, has a farm. Yeah, so we have, let's welcome a farmer at the podium. Päivi, the floor is yours.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. So thank you, Magdalena, and good afternoon, everybody. So it's a great pleasure to be here today to give you some very practical examples on how we promote occupational health services among farmers in Finland. As we know, occupational health and safety services have an essential role in prevention, also among farmers. And therefore, it is more than important to encourage farmers to join and utilize occupational health services. So I will give you a quick overview of the three measures that we have taken to increase the coverage of OHS among farmers. First, some words of how occupational health services are organized in Finland. OHS is a part of primary healthcare, and the services are available to all working individuals in Finland. Employers must organize OHS for their employers, whereas farmers and other entrepreneurs may organize the services for themselves. This is one of the challenges that we meet. how to get farmers to join OHS on voluntary basis. At the moment, municipalities are responsible for producing OHS services for companies and entrepreneurs on their area. There will be a major reform in the healthcare sector in Finland, and the responsibility of these services will be transferred to 21 well-being service counties in the beginning of 2023. And we hope that that reform is going to go well. There are also private OHS providers in addition to public services. And the Farmers Social Insurance Institution, MELA, also has a role in OHS for farmers. MELA maintains the farm visit register of OHS and keeps the statistics on health hazards on the farms. Next one, please. This figure describes the challenges that we have been facing. OHS covers only 1/3 of the farmers. For various reasons, the accession rate of OHS of farmers has been declining for the past 10 years. Some years ago, we started planning new means to encourage farmers to join OHS, and we introduced certain new tools. At the moment, it seems that our new measures have been successful. We have met the bottom of the accession rate in 2020, and the trend has turned up again. It's too early to say whether the upward trend is permanent, but we hope that the measures that we have taken will keep us on this track. So what are the measures? A permanent measure since the year 2000 is the discount in occupational accident insurance premiums if the customer has joined OHS. This is regulated in legislation, and it has been found to be an effective motivator for farmers to join OHS. Recently, we have introduced certain new tools. First, we introduced a new digital service to improve quality of OHS and the communication between the OHS provider and the farmer. Secondly, we offer OHS framework agreements to make joining OHS easy for the farmer and also to improve the quality of OHS. Early intervention network is established to make sure that the farmer who has challenges with his or her physical or mental well-being is directed to get help at an early stage from OHS and other support organizations. So let me now introduce the digital service first. We introduced the new digital OHS application in 2020. It's a browser-based modern interactive tool for reporting work conditions at the farm's visit in real time. Both farmers and OHS providers have an access to the application. The application shifts the focus from ex post reporting to preparation by guiding the service provider to prepare the farm visit systematically in advance and to carry out the farm visit according to certain steps. The app guides the farm visits in a more uniform direction and improves the quality of the service. At least we hope it does. Different OHS professionals like occupational health nurses, physiotherapists, farm safety experts, and so on can use the application simultaneously, which makes the process quicker. The farm visit process starts from collecting pre-information of health hazards from the farmer with a questionnaire. The farmer evaluates the risks on the farm, physical, chemical, biological exposures, ergonomic and psychosocial health hazards, and the risks of accidents. The farmer also evaluates the severity of the risk, if it's remarkable, average, or none. In the questionnaire, the farmer can give more detailed information of the risk. And the questionnaire also works as a checklist and helps the farmer to pay attention to critical risks. On the basis of the information, OHS provider is able to prioritize the health hazards, tailor the farm visit according to farmers' needs, and set targets for the farm visit. The service provider will also use the application to complete the data during the farm visit and to generate the report and the action plan. The farmer can communicate with the service provider, use a farm visit report, and record his measures concerning the recommendations of OHS. Next one, please. So I will introduce some screenshots of the application. Unfortunately, the application is in Finnish, but I hope these slides and my translations will give you some idea of how the app works. This is the front page for the OHS provider. And the application serves as a to-do list for the OHS provider. It has a list of farm visits to be prepared, a list of upcoming farm visits which already have been prepared, and the user can set reminders of different tasks. The application includes messaging service between the OHS provider and the farmer. On the front page, there is a link to user manual, including videos and Melas information like latest news, events, courses. That information can also be found on the front page. Next one, please. And in the user interface for the farmer can also see the upcoming farm visits and use the messaging service and update the basic information of the farm. And a very important part is the recommendations for taking actions to eliminate or to mitigate the health hazards. The farmer sees the open recommendations right when he opens the app. So the app includes also a to-do list for the farmer. And the user manual, videos, and Melas information on well-being events, courses, and so on is also available for the farmer in the front page. In the next slide, you can see the observation of the working conditions and risk assessment on site. So on the farm visit, the OHS provider analyzes and completes the health hazards, evaluates the probability of the risk and severity of the consequences together with the farmer, and enters the data in the application. The classification of health hazards is based on the general risk assessment classification used in OHS. The health hazard can be connected to certain machines, buildings, or other locations like fields and forests in the application. OHS defines the recommendations to eliminate or mitigate the health hazards. The application has 4 categories for recommendations: technical solution, change of work arrangements, personal protection, or other. The user selects the most appropriate category and gives more detailed description of the measures recommended. The application already includes detailed descriptions of the most common health hazards and their implications on health. The user can use these descriptions and modify them as needed. Photos and videos can also be attached to the app to describe risks and recommendations. And the deadline for carrying out the recommendations can be set in the application. Next one, please. The user can follow the recommendations in the application. In the user interface of OHS provider, the user can see the health hazards, recommendations, their deadline, and the status, whether the recommendation is still open or if the farmer has marked it completed. Farmer user interface contains basically the same information, and the application works as a risk management tool for the farmer. Next one, please. The application generates the report of the farm visit and the occupational health action plan, which includes all the measures to support the farmer's workability on the basis of the risks reported. That includes also like rehabilitation courses and such measures. Health hazards and recommendations are presented in the action plan in accordance with the general risk classification, which you see there on the right. Next one, please. And the application also provides links to useful information about supporting workability, like first aid, tips for mental well-being, information about rehabilitation, child safety on farms, forest work, and so on. From Mela's perspective, an extremely valuable part of the application is the statistics. This is an example of the data on health hazards reported on the farms. One of the health hazard categories is the risk of accidents. We can see from our data that the most common risks for accidents reported on the Finnish farms are accidents caused by animals, this blue color in the figure. Secondly, second most common is the obstacles on roads, the orange color. And on the third place, there is the pinch or entanglement hazards, the pink color. This information helps us to plan and target our prevention work. We can get this information classified by different types of farms. For instance, we get the data of the most common risks on dairy farms or farms in certain region. The data gives us huge possibilities to develop our services and to target our prevention measures in the best possible way. We were able to collect statistical data in our previous IT application as well, but this new app gives us even more possibilities to utilize the data and to tailor our prevention work to the needs of different farmers. The application has been in use for about 2 years now, but due to pandemic, we have had a bit slow start. OH providers were not able to carry out farm visits in the beginning. So finally this year, the activities are normalizing. So far, the feedback of the application has been positive from both OHS professionals and farmers. We hope to get more users for the app in the coming years, also among farmers. So the second new tool for promoting OHS is a framework agreements between service providers and farmers. Mela and farmers organizations carried out in cooperation a call for tender for occupational health services for farmers in 7 different regions. In each region, we made from 2 to 4 frame agreements with different OHS providers. Framework agreements were drawn up with service providers who are committed to offer high quality services in accordance with good occupational health practice, reasonable prices, and activities which meet the needs of the farmers. It is quite difficult for an individual farmer to compare different OHS providers and the contracts that they offer, and the framework agreement makes the comparison easier. The goal of the framework agreements is to make the process of joining OHS easy for the farmer and to improve the quality of services, regional equality, accessibility, and effectiveness. The framework agreements have a slight positive effect on OHS accession rate, but active and long-term efforts are still needed to make the framework agreements known more among farmers. The main benefit of the framework agreement is a regular interaction between service providers and customers who are represented by farmers associations and Mela. Service providers get a regular feedback of the quality of services and more understanding of the needs of the customers. There is cooperation in the development and marketing of services. We believe that the framework agreements are a good tool for promoting OHS, but they don't reach the farmers without face-to-face marketing, which will be our focus in the coming years. And finally, the third tool to guide the farmers to use more OHS services is the Farmers Early Intervention Network, a so-called Support the Farmer Network, established by MELA. The concept of early intervention involves educating cooperation partners like advisors, farm relief services, veterinarians, authorities, insurance companies, farmers organizations, and so on, to make observations about early symptoms of burnout, to bring up their observations with the farmer, and to assist the farmer to get help. The economic crisis causes severe difficulties on farms at the moment: financial challenges, mental burden, fatigue, frustration, cynicism, even suicidality. So the need for support is huge. Contacts to OHS don't come spontaneously from the farmer, and also the farm visits are cancelled and postponed for financial reason. And Support the Farmer Network is needed to direct farmers to get professional help from the OHS services and other professionals. The network consists of over 100 organizations that cooperate with the farmers, and it has directed a large number of farmers to get help from MELA's project workers, OHS, and other professionals at an early stage. In many situations, multi-professional teams are needed to help the farmers. MELA is the coordinator of this support, and the network has proved to be very essential. We hope that this fruitful and well-working cooperation between different actors helps as many farmers as possible to continue the important work of producing food in these difficult times. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We are working already a few years together, and I heard about many projects offered by MELA. This is a very rich program of the support to the farmers. What I could, if I could sum up, I heard in the presentation: farmer orientation, standardization, face-to-face contact, digitalization, and early intervention. It means prevention first. Thank you very much. And now we are with the last presentation of the third panel, developing primary prevention in the design and layout of workplaces. The example of the website, I'm sorry for my French, but if I'm correct, monprojetdéchets.fr.
Parfait.
Was it okay? I hope it was quite okay. And this presentation will be given by Ms. Crystal Gillet from Agriculture Social Mutual Organization, MSA from France. Among many responsibilities, Mrs. Gillet developed training courses on the prevention and psychosocial risk for managers of agriculture enterprises and safety coordinators. Mrs. Gillet, I hope you can hear us. The floor is yours.
Thank you. You hear me? Yes?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. Is it okay? Good afternoon, everybody. First of all, please excuse my English, which is a little bit academic. So I would like to thank very much la Caisse Centrale de la MSA to give me the opportunity to present this website. It's an honor and privilege. My name is Christelle Guillet, and I've been advisor in prevention of occupational risk at the MSA of Maine-et-Loire in France for 20 years, especially with wine growers. For 3.5 years, I had the chance to co-pilot a national working group comprising 8 advisors in prevention of occupational risk from several French wine regions. I'm very proud to present it to you. I work in a service which is composed of 2 teams. The first one for health at work to help the agricultural workers to preserve their mental and physical health. And the second one, which is mine, to support the company in improving working conditions. Our approach consists to work with real work situation and particularly to be more efficient in primary prevention. The support of projects allows an upstream reflective approach to anticipate and integrate the real work. Our context is that for about 10 years, we have been accompanying wine growers who have carried out projects that have led to numerous pitfalls linked to poor design or inadequacy between the location and the actual work. For example, a grape harvesting bucket that can't be raised to the top, a press control panel that is not accessible. The projects rarely take into account the actual work carried out in the company. They are often focused on aesthetic, architectural, technical, and environmental requirements. This is the reason why we have decided to create a tool in the form of a web platform to help wine growers who have a planning or design project. This tool is also used by our colleagues to promote MSA support, which an approach focused on the primary prevention and real work situations. It will also make interventions more comfortable. We choose a generic vocabulary because the site is national. We didn't want it to be terroir dependent. We also use drawings rather than photos so as not to influence users on the brands of materials or on the terroir, Champagne, Bordeaux, etc. It aims at focusing on human interventions and not on risks in order to carry out primary prevention. And finally, your approach is to question the work and not to give recommendations. The architecture of the website is composed of 4 tabs. One is keys to success. Les étapes d'un projet is project steps. Mon projet, my project, and plus d'infos, more information. I suggest you to visit it. First of all, let's watch a video in which we can hear 2 wine growers who are presenting their own projects. They have been accompanied by prevention services.
Un chai de vinification, c'est vraiment quelque chose, enfin, on ne fait pas tous les ans. Hein.
Un chai, oui, c'est le projet d'une carrière, le projet d'une vie.
On le fait pour 10, 15, 20 ans. Il faut bien que ce soit construit à la base. Hein.
L'idée de départ, c'était d'avoir un chai fonctionnel, polyvalent et évolutif. L'ancien était devenu beaucoup trop petit, construit pour 15 hectares et on en vinifiait 35 à la fin dedans.
Mon vignoble familial a une croissance assez importante ces dernières années. On va rééquiper la performance du chai pour lui donner une capacité allant entre 2500 et 30 hectos, toujours vinifier rentrer. C'est le projet de ma vie, hein. Voilà, c'est le gros projet de ma carrière. Voilà. Donc celui-là, il ne faut pas le rater.
on a travaillé à plusieurs têtes, donc la conseillère en prévention, mais aussi en intégrant toute l'équipe pour vraiment avoir le plus de têtes pensantes. Ça a été vraiment dans l'échange et dans la co-construction.
Ils ont analysé un peu les tâches qu'on faisait, ils nous posaient des questions, prendre le process, pourquoi comme ça et pourquoi comme ça.
Les postes de travail à la réception des raisins, les situations de chargement, déchargement des pressoirs, les flux, on les a modélisés, on les a dessinés, on les a décrits, ce qui nous a permis de voir si tout pouvait tenir en un même lieu sans non plus se gêner.
Moi, j'ai vraiment une vision process-travail et la MSA qui a un esprit beaucoup plus large, a mis le doigt sur tout ce qui est maintenance. Très basique, on a une grosse pompe permanente dans un trou, je fais comment pour la sortir?
On a encore apporté beaucoup de modifications sur l'emplacement des passerelles, l'emplacement des postes de travail, les portes, les arrivées d'eau, des éviers et compagnie, qui peuvent paraître anodins, mais qui sont vraiment très importants pour ne pas gêner le flux principal. La réflexion ne nous a pas coûté plus cher, elle nous a surtout permis d'éviter des problèmes à la suite de la construction. Maintenant, il y a un nouveau site lancé par la MSA.
Ça s'appelle Mon Projet de Chez, qui est là pour aider les vignerons, les viticulteurs, pour qu'ils commencent à avoir une réflexion sur un futur investissement et que cet investissement soit réussi.
Le site internet permet en toute autonomie de pouvoir se poser les bonnes questions le plus tôt possible dans son projet.
C'est très intéressant parce que ça vient poser des questions que naturellement on ne pourrait pas se poser. Le positionnement des prises, des points d'eau, du caniveau technique aurait pu être comme ça et comme ça. Je remets un petit peu en question. Du coup, ça fait une première approche et ça permet de préparer un dossier pour passer à la phase suivante qui est le contact du conseiller ISSA et de travailler le dossier plus en profondeur. Sachant que le questionnement aura déjà été fait en amont par le biais du site.
So, the first tab talks about the keys to the success of a project in 3 key points or prerequisites. The first, to make the winemaker, the wine grower, the master of his project. He is often disposed of it by the architect, the project manager. So it's important to do that. The second is to act on the human interventions. There is a motion design to explain it. And the third, to involve all the internal and external actors with a drawing to present it. The second tab consists in explaining the stages of a project to the winemaker. This is really important so that he understands the process in which he finds himself, in particular in terms of vocabulary when dealing with professionals of the building sector. The project is made up of 5 steps: intention, programming, design, realization, and running. In order to better understand, the best thing is that I show you a few motion designs that we made. The motion design about intention.
Vous avez l'intention de construire un chai. Par où commencer? Identifier les atouts et les faiblesses du fonctionnement existant permet de construire à partir d'une base sûre. C'est faire un état des lieux. Concrètement, il faut passer en revue votre organisation, votre matériel, vos méthodes et des situations de travail que vous avez pu voir chez d'autres vignerons. Vous allez ainsi identifier ce que vous souhaitez mettre en place, mais aussi ce que vous ne voulez pas reproduire dans vos futures installations. À partir de cet état des lieux, vous pouvez vous projeter sur votre fonctionnement futur et sur ce qui aura une influence sur votre projet global et sur le nouveau bâtiment. Quel type de production? Quelle technique de vinification? Quel type de commercialisation? Quel type de vente? Quel mode de fonctionnement. Et à plus longue échéance, vos futures aspirations. Enfin, vous allez définir votre budget et les sources de financement pour mener à bien votre projet. Vous pouvez commencer à solliciter les acteurs internes et externes afin de les impliquer dans votre projet.
The second about programming.
Vous allez commencer à élaborer votre cahier des charges en tenant compte du travail réalisé par les futurs utilisateurs. Vous devez ainsi définir vos besoins à partir des situations propres à votre entreprise. En intégrant par exemple la circulation des personnes dans le futur bâtiment, ainsi que la circulation des véhicules et des personnes à l'extérieur. Les flux entrants, matières premières, emballages, produits de nettoyage, ainsi que les flux sortants, produits finis, vrac, déchets, lits, barres, eau de rinçage, palettes, cartons, CO2. Ou encore les opérations d'entretien et les interventions de prestataires extérieurs. Ce cahier des charges vous facilitera la tâche pour transmettre aux exécutants des consignes claires et précises.
And the last about programming.
Vous allez commencer à élaborer votre cahier des charges en tenant compte du travail réalisé par les futurs utilisateurs. Vous devez ainsi définir vos besoins à partir des situations propres à votre entreprise. En intégrant par exemple la circulation des personnes dans le futur bâtiment, ainsi que la circulation des véhicules et des personnes à l'extérieur. Les flux entrants, matières premières, emballages, produits de nettoyage, ainsi que les flux sortants, produits finis, vrac, déchets, lits, barres, eau de rinçage, palettes, cartons, CO2. Ou encore les opérations d'entretien et les interventions de prestataires extérieurs. Ce cahier des charges vous facilitera la tâche pour transmettre aux exécutants des consignes claires et précises.
C'est même. Okay. So the third tab is the heart of the website. It's composed of the 5 main categories related to the winemaking process. The winemaker can go to each category independently of the others. If he has a project to redo his reception, he only goes to this part of the process. But if he wants to redo everything, he has to go to each category. In the intention stage, the most important one, he will have to think about his commercial, strategic, and qualitative choices, and then he will have to see what he wants to keep and reproduce in relation to his current operation and to his organization today, and see what he wants to avoid at all costs in his future project. For example, in the category reception of grapes, you can see 9 major human interventions, such as reception and evacuation of containers. He clicks on it and a number of questions appear, always with the same categories: temporality, method, techniques, etc. He can print out his questions and even download the document as a PDF to answer them in due course. All this can help him draw up specifications for the architect, project manager, or equipment supplier. Of course, the wine grower is autonomous in visiting the site, but if he or she wishes to be accompanied by a preparation service, there is a More Info Contact tab with the contact details of all the prevention services in France. We also create a library and a video library tab to give them some documents. So to finish, we have made several communications internally with the 70,000 wine growers in France, with our partners, and with the national and local press. Conferences were held at several national trade fairs, such as the CIVAL, where we won a gold medal. The social networks were also the relay of the website release. Some communication tools were also drawn up to promote this tool. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. Again, we have a very comprehensive approach to this time, I would say, very tasty production, because we are talking about wine production. And I would say that I noticed two things. The first is that, again, comprehensive approach to prevention, including both health and security. And the second, that it was, again, something what we should put into consideration each time we realize the project, that we should be with our projects very close to the real task realized in the farms, whatever the production is. And I would like to thank you very much, all the speakers of the third panel. Now, I think that it was very effective time, and we deserve a break. And please don't forget about the stretching. I'm observing here Professor John Rosenkranz, and I see that he's using this opportunity for stretching, and this is a very good example. So I'm going now to change my sitting position, because yes, not to do it so long, not too long, but now I have to stand up. So thank you very much. We'll see each other in 15 minutes. I hope everybody will follow me. Also all our participants online, please. Thank you. See you in 15 minutes.
So hello everybody, are we all back? Welcome back also participants online. We are now almost closing day one, and the topic of this fourth session, panel 4, is return to work. And personally, I'm very happy that we have that topic on the agenda, because we're talking about agriculture, we're talking about machine safety, farm safety, and it's all related to prevention. But what happens after an accident happens? This is a question that many prevention people actually don't really look at, because they think, well, we should prevent the accident, now it has happened, so okay, compensation, you know. And in many regions in the world, that's what it is. You know, everybody gets a lump sum or maybe a pension allowance of very little, and then they can just see how they can survive. And rehabilitation has a different approach. Rehabilitation means that we try to bring people back to work. And I'm very happy to know that there's an ILO and IFAD project with people living with disabilities, trying to bring them back to work, trying to reintegrate them into their agricultural work. And there are about 7,000 people, I think, that benefit from this project. The project is called Spark. And it's in African countries like Malawi, and then it's in Mozambique, and in 2 more. So with this short introduction, is just to say that return to work is important. But with this short introduction, I would like to call on our first participant who is online. It is Dr. Robert Tabaszewski from the John Paul II Catholic University of Lublin, Poland. And he will present the right of agricultural workers to refuse or to stop unsafe or unhealthy work in the post-COVID era.
Good afternoon. I hope you can hear me well. Good afternoon, dear ladies and gentlemen. It is a great honor and pleasure to be here today with authorities and distinguished guests. I would like to highlight the importance of this conference. So thank you so much for allowing me to talk about the legal aspects of unsafe and unhealthy work in agriculture. Especially, the subject is really important in the post-COVID era. The importance of the right to refuse or to stop unsafe and unhealthy work in agriculture as an internal part of the right of the work began to recognize of the 19th century when in pursuit of profit, factory owners forced the workers to complex long hours of work while not providing them with fundamental employee rights. But of course, the right to work in safe and healthy conditions is an essential issue for many reasons. I'm not sure if my PPT presentation is, so let me upload it now. Yes. Let's start. Yeah. As I hope you can see it. Starting with the very first point, I would like to say that the aim of my speech is to define the current standards of the European and Council of Europe in post-COVID era in the field of the right to refuse or to stop unsafe and unhealthy work. So the topic is quite important and actual, I believe, because the vast majority of laws, including labor codes of European countries, contain a right to refrain work from performing hazardous work. So still some regulations on agricultural workers are not especially precise in the context. So in the very first place, I will present the basic standards for the right to safe work in agriculture. Then I will present the solution of the Council of Europe, especially exposed in 2021-22 in the context of the Article 2nd and Article 3rd of European Social Charter, which is underestimated by farmers and agricultural workers. So due to the fact that the old standards of Article 2nd and 3rd are quite familiar, I would like to focus on the challenges and opportunities offered by the protection instruments expressed in the new Article 2, Part 4 and 7. So the provisions are closely linked to Article 3 of the Charter, under which the states undertake the pursue policies and take measures to improve occupational health and safety in agriculture. So those provisions seem to be interesting option for protection for employees working in agriculture. General standards, as you can see, basic but insufficient standards for the right to refuse or to stop unsafe or unhealthy work in agriculture and other sphere were created under European United Nations system. Of course, basically, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights has established the basic standards for the right to healthy and harmless working conditions. The provision of Article 23 of the Declaration recognizes that everyone has the right to just and favorable conditions of the West, including, of course, workers in agriculture. It means that working conditions must respect not only by the principle of decency, but also the principles of respect for human dignity. The progressive character of the employment right, including agricultural work and in rural areas as well, has been confirmed by the International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights. They recognize, of course, in Article 6, as you can see, the Covenant right to work includes the right of everyone's the opportunity to gain his living by work, which of course he freely chooses and accepts and will appropriate steps to safeguard this. So the right to safe working conditions is defined in detail Article 7 of the Convention. Pursuant to the provision, the state parties to the present Convention recognize the right to everyone's enjoyment of just and favored conditions of work which ensure, in particular, safe and healthy working conditions. So there are numbers of legal instruments in the national law that form the basic of rights to refuse to stop unsafe and unhealthy work in agriculture. Even United Nations special conventions encourage states to introduce options to refrain from unsafe and unhealthy work for women, children, and people with disabilities, all the people in agriculture. So conventions and guiding principles on business and human rights, of course, encourage and repeat this policy. Some of those universal instruments, of course, you can see, are specialized international tools which were adopted within the framework of the International Labour Organization. I'm not going to list it because you can see it, but the most important is to respect the Occupational Safety and Health Convention. Article 13 of the Occupational Safety and Health Convention gives the employees, including employees in agriculture, specific rights. It specifies that a worker who has removed himself from a work situation which he has reasonably justification to believe presence and imminent and serious danger to his life or health shall be protected from undue consequences in accordance with the national competences and practice. So this is an obligation of a state. It is also worth looking at the regional standards just for a while. Most human rights nowadays and most human protection systems express the right to work, of course, in agriculture as well, under certain conditions. Such documents include, of course, Charter of Fundamental Rights of the EU, Convention of Commonwealth on the Independent States of the Rights and Fundamental Freedoms of Persons. We have additional protocol to the American Convention, African Charter on Human Rights, and of course, our Charter on Human Rights revised. That's important. And it's worth regarding reading paragraph 2 of the article 34, according to which every worker, it doesn't matter if it's in rural, if it's city, has the right to enjoyment of just and favorable conditions of work, which ensure appropriate remuneration to meet his essential needs to those of his family and regulate working hours. So rest and holidays with pay, as well as the rules of the preservation of occupational health and safety and the protection of women, children, and disabled persons in place of work. So why is this important? Because this confirms that the commitment of a state to create healthy and safe working conditions in agriculture. This obligation is a standard, which means that in the event of failure and to meet this condition, employees have the right to refuse or discontinue work. And we have a case of European Union, Article 15 of the Charter, and of course, Directive 89/391 ISSA. According to workers who, in the event of serious, imminent, and unavailable danger, leaving the workstation or dangerous area, may not be placed at any disadvantage because of the action must be protected against any harmful and unjustified consequences in accordance with national laws and practices. So this is provision, and this provision gives an example of the right of refusal to perform work when faced with serious danger. In such case, he may not or she may not be discriminated against in any way by the employer and by the victim of any sanction. So also we have some standards of Council of Europe, because European Social Charter directly relates to the right of the workers to stop unsafe and healthy work in two places. For people in agriculture, it's important to mention Article 3 and Article 2. General and primal standards, of course, it's in Article 3. Especially we are talking about healthy working conditions for farmers and other agricultural workers. On the other hand, we have very specific direct regulation are included in Article 2. Article 2, in particular, this provision contains three institutions that are very useful to the worker. They are contained in paragraph 4, 6, and 7, because Article 2 of the revised charter fully corresponds to the provision of Article 3 and Article 11, by the way. But due to the need for the health protection of farmers, it is possible to limit working hours in accordance with some provisions of the revised chart. Let's see a little case study, how it's look like in practice, because all member states of Council of Europe need to implied in practice. In Poland, we have the light of the above standards, particular solutions of the member states. On the example of the Polish Labor Code, it can be observed that there is a separate right to refuse of state unsafe and unhealthy work. So let's look at a specific example. The right to refrain from the performance of work is granted by Article 210 of the Polish Labor Code. As you can see, this provision is quite extensive, and it consists a general guarantee that every employee has the right to refuse work, even if it's not as dangerous it seems. Then the provision specifies a procedure under which it is possible to maintain employees' rights despite the fact that employee does not perform work. So let's see the recipe of the first paragraph. According to it, if the working conditions do not comply with occupational health and safety regulations and pose a direct threat to the health or life to the employee, or the right working performed by his poses such a danger to other people, the employee has the right to refrain from performing work, notifying the supervisor immediately. And there are two cases of the possibility of refraining from performing work, and each time it requires the fulfillment of these two conditions, which are lack of safe working conditions and direct threat to the life. It doesn't mean it's the direct threat to employees himself or other employees. So the right to agriculture workers refraining work was clarified also by Polish Supreme Court. Not only by Polish Supreme Court, I also have the evidences in at least 16 European Supreme Courts in the last few years. And also we have possibility when we are talking about agriculture to right to move away from the place of danger. This is essential right of every worker. It's not only essential for farmers and agriculture workers. In Poland, cases of accidents in agriculture are very precisely regulated in Article 11, Section 1 of the Act of 1990 on farmers' social insurance. So what does it mean in practice, not only in Poland, but also in other countries? European Social Charter shows that if refraining from performing work does not remove the risk, according the employee has the right to move away from the place of danger, notifying the supervisor immediately. And it is worth emphasizing that the employee, in addition, protected in such a difficult situation. The employee may not bear any adverse consequences for him due refraining from work or moving away from the place of danger. What is worth noting, the employee retains the right of remuneration for the time of refraining for performing work or moving away from the place of danger in this above mentioned. So it doesn't matter if it should be on a farm, in a greenhouse, in a processing plant, or elsewhere. She or he will not receive remuneration only if he or she stopped working due to his inadequate psychological condition. So employee has the right upon prior notification to the supervisor, according to European Social Charter, to refrain from performing work that requires special psychophysical fitness in the event of his or she's physical condition. So does not ensure safe working performance and possess that to threat the other people. And what is the nature of the right to refuse to stop unsafe healthy work in post-COVID area? Because the right to refuse or to stop this kind of work is not absolute. This is, of course, not so non-derogative right in the light of the European Convention from 1950. An employee whose duty is to save human life or property does not use the right to refrain from performing work or to move away from the place of danger in conditions of the direct threat to his or her life, while retaining the right to remuneration. Why? Because this danger is someone assumption described in the nature of the work performed by she or her. And him. The above Polish Labor Code like example solution is only an example. So member states are bound by the provision in Article 2 of the Social Charter to introduce some kind of various solutions. So as you can see, preventive, compensatory measures, legislative, which will ensure the proper safety of an employee who works in unhealthy and dangerous workplace. So this conventional solution include in agriculture, reduced working hours, plus additional holidays, of course. In agriculture is very limited. Weekly rest period for workers and farmers in dangerous and unhealthy occupation, and night work in case of dangerous or unhealthy occupations. This is really hard in practice, but because, which is worth noting, that this right is granted on general terms to all employees, regardless of the conditions and on what terms they perform work. So therefore, the general right to stop an unsafe or unhealthy work should be distinguished from the performing work, the essence of which is to save human life or property. So this applies to uniformed service and in agriculture, and it's very limited. Such professions include health workers in agriculture, fire brigades in rural areas, security services in agriculture, and others. The fact that employee will work in harmful and hazardous conditions should necessarily be regulated in the employee's employment contract. And that the provision, of course, Article the second paragraph 6 of the revised charter guarantee workers the right to written information at the start of their employment relating to the essential aspect of the contract or employment relationship. Another standard is expressed in Article 2 and paragraph 4, and it applies the reduced working hours in farms. In the case of small farms, determining such breaks is difficult, but also necessary. The content of European Social Charter provision of concerning the protection of employees working in dangerous or unhealthy conditions is somehow different than in Charter of 1961. The original document puts more emphasis on compensating. Now states have to provide additional paid holidays or reduced working hours for workers engaged in dangerous and unhealthy occupational prescribed. So, however, as the average weekly workload was reduced in the second half of the 20th century and most industries underwent technical progress, the text now is amended with the revised chart. The other issue is how to secure vulnerable workers in agriculture. Unfortunately, European Charter does not establish, but also we have specified documents. I'm not going to talk about today because time is very limited. So this document does not establish an enumerative catalog of occupations that should be subject to specific protection. In this perspective, states have a degree of discretion to decide who can be a vulnerable person in agriculture. Unfortunately. Why? The subject of the protection is therefore a worker who works in hazardous or health-threatening conditions if they were covered by statutory protection. In domestic legislation, each state should create a list of categories of workers in agriculture engaging in hazardous or dangerous occupation and eligible for measures such as extended annual leave, if, of course, it's applicable, reduced working time. So committee in Strasbourg asked states for lists of activities regarded as involving exposure to participants' risk and to be included in states' reports. Yes, and what's in practice, what's our state's obligation? Article 2nd, paragraph 4 of the revised charter requires states to eliminate risks in inherently dangerous and unhealthy occupation in agriculture. In this regard, states are obliged to pursue policies of ineffective implementation of legislative, judicial, and other mechanisms aimed at eliminating and reducing occupational hazards, and in particular working in inherently dangerous and unhealthy sectors. So the aim of the above policies is to initiate positive actions such as awareness raising, prevention and inspections activities. So states should base their policies for reducing and eliminating life and health threatening factors. States can also develop special strategies in agriculture. This is one of the duties. That's purely decision of the committee. And in order for the committee to consider that a state meets its obligation to eliminate the risk of the inherently dangerous and unhealthy occupations, the state must first demonstrate that it implements a provision policy that is inherently dangerous and unhealthy occupations in agriculture. The last thing is compensation measures, which are pretty interesting for particular cases. If states are unable to meet all the requirements concerning prevention and elimination these factors in agriculture, they are really obliged to provide appropriate compensation measures. The purpose of this provision is to compensate for and reward stress and physical and mental extraction. So the extra time allows workers in agriculture to rest and to recover from the stress and the fatigue caused by the occupation and limit the exposure of the risk of agriculture. That's also the decision of the committee in Strasbourg. And this is because certain activities are likely to involve the need to preserve workers' vigilance and mental and physical health through specific measures dealing with the organization of work. This is really important in the post-COVID era, and it is the primary duty of a state to regulate the forms of compensation awarded in case of presidential risk inherent in dangerous of unhealthy occupation. Also, the case of night work. For people working in a healthy and dangerous condition, the provisions of the social charter regarding night work and weekly risk period in agriculture are very important. In agriculture, as you know, in many cases, some activities may only be performed at night. At night work is not defined in any European document, especially I'm talking about Council of Europe. The revised charter has pointed out that domestic law or practice must define what is considered to be night work within the context of the provision. So namely what period is considered to be night and who is considered to be night worker. Article 2, paragraph 7 of the charter requires regular medical examination, including a checkup prior to assignment to night work in agriculture. The law should provide for a medical examination prior to beginning night work. This is because the efficiency of the night work is much lower than the daytime work. That's obvious. Night work causes employees to tire more quickly, which increases the number of accidents. And national regulations should take into account that night work disturbs employees' circadian rhythm, prevention recuperation, also disturb the family and social life, making contact with the household members and household duties difficult. So information about night work belongs to the essential aspects of the contract, and it consists of so-called essentialia negotii. The last point, weekly rest period, very disputed when we are talking agriculture. Article 2 and paragraph 5 of the Charter guarantees a weekly rest period, which insofar as possible shall coincident with the day traditionally or normally recognized as a day of the rest in country of origin concerned. And as you can see, the revised charter does not provide an exact definition of non-working day and leaving this to discretion of national authorities. So in practice, it can be any day of the week. In most countries, all employees are entitled to a weekly rest period, usually Sundays, but the rest period can be taken on a day other than the traditional day, either when the type of activity requires it or for the person of active economic nature. So at all events, another day of rest during the week must be provided for. So the right to weekly rest period may not be replaced by compensation, and employees may not be permitted to give it up. And reaching to conclusion, the right to refuse or to stop unsafe or unhealthy work in agriculture is an integral part as a human right to work. So as a rule, the COVID era has not changed the essence much. and only palette of resources can be used has changed. The right to refuse to stop or unhealthy work shall meet the standards not only of social charter but also domestic issues. And in the event of threat to life and health in agriculture, the employer may not refuse the employee to exercise this right. So, however, there is still much to be done, as you can see. That is why the committee's examination of the states' report shows that the large number of the states have some problems with the complete implementation of the provision. So this is also our task to make this world safer. Thank you very much. It was a real pleasure.
Thank you very much, Yes, let's give him a round of applause. Yes, thank you very much for having explained all these conditions of work and the rights for workers to refuse work in dangerous situations. ILO Convention 155, Article 13 is, I believe, pretty much known, but also all these other overviews that you have provided, from the Polish law to European social charters, etc. So now that we know a little bit more about refusing, the right to refuse work, I just wanted to share with you one experience I had with Vision Zero, because I was visiting a company, Thames Water in England, and the CEO is actually going to all these workers and handing out cards which says, I herewith authorize you to stop the work the moment you see anybody in danger, or in case you are in danger yourself. So every worker of Thames Water has this card and is authorized to do so. So that's also a way of promoting Vision Zero and of reducing the accidents. And yeah, so thank you again for this important contribution. Let's move on to our next speaker, who is actually here with us today in person, not virtual. And I'm emphasizing that because COVID has actually created a bit of a strange scenario where people are now sometimes here, sometimes not. Sometimes we are scared to meet people, sometimes not. And the topic is recovery from COVID-19. So Dr. Robert Liana, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I am very glad I can be here with you in this beautiful, wonderful colloquium in Rome. And I can take my activity in a very important topic called return to work. So I would like to share with you the information. I would like to give you some information about recovery from COVID-19, a new profile for KRUS inpatients rehabilitation. Next slide, please. The turning point in Poland was March 2020, because first in Poland we've got a state of epidemic emergency, and then from March 2020 to May 2022 we've got a state of epidemic, and from May 2022 we've got a state of epidemic emergency. And unfortunately, during this difficult time, we've got 2 times a temporary restriction of activity, our rehabilitations activity. It means it was 2 times totally stop of medical activity. And of course, we launched during this time. We launched our activities in the centers, like individual accommodation in rooms. Procedures have been introduced to guarantee the safe organization of benefits. We trying to body temperature measurement every day, 2 times a day, obligation of cover the mouth and nose, and keeping distant, and all necessary things in our centers. The next slide, please. Together with the chief funds doctor, we have been issued anti-epidemic guidelines. For regional branches of the KRUS and for farmers rehabilitation centers, and we also issued the patient's pre-qualification questionnaire. And what was the most important for us, that the condition for starting rehabilitation in KRUS, the medical rehabilitation facilities, was a negative result of diagnostic tests for SARS-CoV-2 of the patient. The next slide, please. The next, please. The data collected in our institutions, what kind of complications we observed in post-infectious patients. There was respiratory problems, shortness of breath, general weakness of the body, resulting in a prolonged feeling of fatigue. And as we know, today in the literature, in the medical literature, we have got the definition, the post-COVID syndrome, or long COVID also. What it is, a notorious feeling of fatigue, abnormal heart rhythms, difficulties in undertaking the even slightest physical activity, complaint of muscle or joint pain or headache, or problem with concentration, memory, or logical thinking as well. The next, please. And what about the consequences? Unfortunately, all the symptoms made it difficult for farmers to function on a daily basis and return to work on a farm. The post-COVID-19 rehabilitation in KRUS. Yes, in order to meet the pandemic health priorities, we started our program in 2021. Next slide, please. What was the main goals for us? First of all, remission of disease in recovered patients, improving the exercise capacity, circulatory and respiratory efficiency, strengthening the psychophysical condition, improving functional status and quality of life, and supporting mental health. The program started on spring 2021, and in Jedlec in May, and in Szklarska Poręba in June. The next slide, please. In Poland, actually, we've got 6 rehabilitation centers for farmers, and there are one in Kołobrzeg, one in Świnoujście, one in Choryniec-Zdrój, one in Iwonicz-Zdrój, and one in Jedlec and in Szklarska Poręba. In this last 2 rehabilitation centers, we have launched the post-COVID rehabilitation. And previous, please. What more I would like to say, medical rehabilitation is carried out in the form of 21-day stationary inpatient stays at the KRUS Farmers Rehabilitation Centers, and we've got very qualified medical staff, of course, doctors, physiotherapists, massage therapists, nurses, psychologists, nutritionists, and eventually support staff. The next, please. What about the procedure pass? Of course, the qualification take place in KRUS regional branches, and we've got two paths. The first is a referral on the basis on the application from the GP doctor on for specialist, on eventually from the internal procedure of the KRUS. And what is requirements? Documented COVID disease, rehabilitation carried out at least 20 weeks after the onset of the disease, and the rehabilitation program is systemic and of course systematic because it's every day, and individually treatments determined by the doctors in each center. The next, please. Of course, we need to have indication for the rehabilitation after COVID. So there is the main indication, they are post-COVID interstitial pneumonia, for example, but during respiratory capacity, previous COVID disease in person with controlled peripheral asthma, or COPD, but in mild form, or sarcoidosis, for example. The next slide, please. And finally, till the end of August 2022, we have been rehabilitated in KRUS 206 patients. And what the program includes. the very important pillar of this program is patient assessment. So what does it mean? Subjective and physical examination, respiratory system, I mean the tests, for example, spirometers, muscle strength assessment, or for example, using dynamometer, assessment of mental state, ability to cope with health problems, or eventually with the stress. And the second pillar is defining an individual training plan. Of course, endurance exercises. We've got aerobic, interval training, strength resistance exercises, respiratory exercises. We're trying to educate our patients, for example, effective cuffing, relaxation techniques, drainage, patting, or massage. General fitness exercises are very important, and supportive treatment, for example, therapy, electrotherapy, or other physical medicine methods. The next slide, please. What is very, very important, in my opinion, patient education. So optimal disease management, strategy for correct breathing, correct use of medicine, benefits or physical exercises, proper nutrition, or relaxation techniques. And the very important thing also in this program is evaluation of rehabilitation results. Because comparison of the results before and after rehabilitation, this is the point. And I need to conclude. I would like to say that all patients after rehabilitation program have improved their health conditions. What else is important? Assessment of physical fitness, doing a spirometry, for example, or assessment of dyspnea or fatigue. For example, we use Borg scale, or of course the quality of the life and physical activity assessment using, for example, a questionnaire. And the next, please. So what about conclusion? Professional rehabilitation helps patients to recover and helps return to full health, and providing rehabilitation allow farmers to fully recover and thus return to farm to work on the farm. And we, like an institution in KRUS, we will continue to work in this health area, providing expert support for these recovered patients. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Liana, for this presentation. It's good to know that there are social security institutions who actually run rehabilitation programs for farmers, and who also look into the effects, long-term effects of COVID-19. And now we've heard KRUS, that's the Polish social security institution for agriculture. And now we have another speaker from INAIL. And INAIL in Italy has also a rehabilitation program, and they run work reintegration projects. And it is my pleasure to announce the last speaker for today. Last but not the least, of course, it's Dr. Laura De Filippo from INAIL. And I hope you're here. Hello, can you hear us?
Yeah, thank you
Hello.
very much. Good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you for being with us.
Yeah, I share my presentation.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, we can see it and we can hear you very well.
Is it okay? Do you see it?
Yeah, maybe you just want to put it into the slideshow mode. Yes.
Is it in the slideshow mode?
Yeah, you have two screens on, so it's we see also the next slide coming, and I think you have to go on the top.
Okay, let me
It's
change.
also fine like that. It's okay.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Here you can change it.
Is it okay now?
Now it's perfect.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for this opportunity to talk about this topic. It's a very important one, I think. And I'm a technical professional, a chemist. I work for INAIL, which is the Italian public compulsory insurance against accidents at works and occupational diseases. So we have already seen this morning from my colleagues' report, which is the INAIL's role in the Italian welfare system. First of all, INAIL protects and helps workers who are victims of occupational injuries and diseases by giving them compensation, support, rehabilitation, prosthesis, orthosis, and so on. And the other role, I don't want to read it, you know it then. But is this enough? Since December 2014 by law, but effectively since 2016, INAIL has taken on a new task of assisting the reintegration into employment of workers suffering disabilities deriving from occupational diseases or work-related injuries. When a worker suffers disabilities resulting from injury or illness, he or she is facing the risk of not being able to continue working as before. So what can we do for him or for her? INAIL regulation allows each project per worker to be funded up to a maximum of 150,000 euros to support work reintegration developed in the following 3 project lines. Number 1, overcoming and eliminating workplace architectural barriers, modification of entrances, elevators, bathrooms, and so on. The second, adjustment and adaptation of workstation, equipment, machinery, so automation, remote control, devices to meet the needs of the disabled worker and relieve his or her workload. And the third one is education and training for work integration. So reprofessionalization, reskilling, acquisition of new licenses and ratings as needed. Each project is specifically customized for every worker, based on his specific limitation, disabilities, and real needs. The goal is to reintegrate him into the same job as before, preserving his knowledge, or if that is not possible, to integrate him safely into a new job, providing training as needed, enhancing his residual skills and abilities, adapting his workstation and tools, or providing new equipment. Sometimes it's necessary to adapt the task, finding help in automatization, remote control, and devices, digital devices. In the remaining cases, we have to reorganize the task by finding help from other colleagues or workers. A multidisciplinary team consisting of medical doctors, socio-educational assistants, administrative and technical professionals is activated to achieve the goal of a successful work reintegration, analyzing the starting situation, the limitation, residual skills, and analyzing each work phase, deciding how to overcome difficulties. Then developing the customized project, supporting the worker and employer at all stages. Technician, technical staff help to manage the complexity of some projects that require machine modification and adaptation, new certification, special technical solution, and also the identification of worker training needs to achieve new skills. Agriculture, we have seen it today in many of the relations, is one of the working sectors with the highest rates of occupational diseases, among which musculoskeletal disorders are particularly relevant, and of accidents, which often lead to serious injuries. In our experience and analysis, the specifics of the agricultural work are: the work is cyclical, seasonal, highly varied, and mostly physically demanding. The worker is usually a self-employed farmer. The work is often lonely and autonomous. Modern machines are very useful, but often not suitable, especially the older ones, for disabled workers with impairments and disabilities such as amputation and prosthesis. In the next slides, we share some concrete cases and solutions realized for agricultural workers in Italy. Case number 1, a farmer, 50 years old, as a result of a serious injury during the manual felling of a tree, suffers anatomical loss of the left leg treated with the transtibial prosthesis, and also modest functional limitation of the right ankle and mild sensory disturbances in the right hand. Before the injury in his farm, he has always worked alone. At full capacity, 3 breeding cycles were carried out per year, 2 short cycles in the first half of the year, each producing about 39,000 chickens, and 1 long cycle in the second half of the year, producing about 32,000 capons. The farm is about 35 hectares of land planted with corn, sunflower, soybeans, forest, and grassland. Before the injury, he personally took care of the cultivation operations in the land for the stages of plowing, harrowing, seeding, fertilizing, and weeding, using his own equipment and 3 tractors. Then, after the injury, during his care, rehabilitation lasting 2 years, he had to suspend breeding cycle, and he had outsourced workers cultivate his fields. Then he slowly started working again, trying to cope. His wife started working with him, helping him in some difficult tasks and supporting him psychologically as well with the inner socio-educational assistant, but not helping in tractor driving because she's not able to do those tasks. Once he recovered, because of his transtibial prosthesis, he was no longer able to drive a normal, unadapted tractor. Except by adapting them, he has 3 of them, with manual servo clutch. So the project we realized consisted of the adaptation of the 2 newer tractors, the most recent ones, one from 2003 and the other from 2004, that have been successfully retrofitted with manually operated electric servo clutch with a device specifically approved and installed according to standard. A third tractor, the older one, from 1985, a Fiat Agrifull, purchased used, certainly too old and lacking essential machine requirements, did not allow the introduction of a suitable manually operated electric power clutch, and was not adaptable also the driver's seat, and was lacking of handles to get on and get off the vehicle. So from this technical analysis arose the need to purchase a new tractor already equipped with a manual power clutch to effectively replace the current one, which is therefore scrapped. Now it has been 3 years since the project was implemented. The farmer is fully reintegrated into his work. His wife is still working with him. The chicken farm proceeds at pre-injury pace. The farm is financially sustainable again and is now expanding. And there is a nice 2-minute clip in the INAIL YouTube channel for those interested in seeing it. I'm sorry, it's in Italian, but it's quite nice. Case number 2. As a result of an accident, the 57-year-old farm worker suffered a serious injury resulting in complete paraplegia due to a vertebromedullary trauma and confinement to a wheelchair. The farm has an extension of about 8 hectares, with land located in the hills and used for alfalfa forage, olive grove, orchard, forest, and vegetable garden. After the injury, he couldn't carry out agricultural work. So the alfalfa and fodder cultivation were outsourced. The orchard was looked after by the worker's wife, and the olive grove was abandoned. The worker could only attend to some minor agricultural work on flat land, cutting grass, for instance, as the farm's own vehicles, an excavator and a tractor skid steer loader, were not suitable for use by people with reduced mobility. They were cumbersome and cannot be used to carry out activities in confined spaces, such as between the rows of the orchard and in the olive grove. The project entailed the provision of a new electrically powered tracked agricultural vehicle, small-sized and designed to be used on any type of terrain, equipped with all the protective devices, a 4-point safety belt, ergonomic seat, anti-tip bar, permanent magnet safety brakes, self-monitor control electronics, controlled by joystick, and also equipped with a shredder for mechanically cutting up the product of pruning. The vehicle's small dimensions allow to move easily between the rows of olive trees and orchards, enabling the worker to carry out the daily task, being able to attach tools equipped with telescopic poles. So now he is enabled to take an active and autonomous role in running his farm again. Case number 3. A farmer with right lower extremity and cervical spine damage caused by an accident. He has a farm where rice and corn are cultivated. He works mainly alone, performing all the phases of the work cycle. Before the accident, he was using all the available farm equipment. After the accident, we have to take an analysis of the agricultural machinery to identify the most critical phase for the farmer condition. The most demanding work phase is pesticide treatment. The operation is performed using a window wagon with manually opening and closing spray booms. While using this equipment, the worker has continuously to get off the tractor to manually close the booms as the vehicle moves around the various plots of land and open them again when needed. So jump off and jump on the tractor. Fatigue is greater where there are embankments, poles, tree crops, and muddy areas. So the project, a tank wagon was supplied, equipped with a hydraulic boom with remote controls from the cab, allowing the spray booms to be opened and closed without getting off the tractor. So the goal was achieved. He is now able to perform pesticide treatment without getting on and off the tractor, improving working condition and reducing physically effort. Case number 4, the last one, a 55-year-old farmer running his own farm, suffering from lumbosacral spine dysfunction as a result of an occupational diseases caused by whole body vibration and also manual handling of loads. This causing him difficulties in performing the job as it requires sitting for a long time on the regular seat of a wheeled tractor, exerting excessive strain on his spine. The tasks performed are those typical of agricultural work with extensive cultivation, orchards, vineyards, and the tractor was equipped with various types of accessories applied, crusher, plow, etc. The machines for pruning the vineyard and harvesting fruits. The dysfunction forced him to look for solution, but he also has to spend time sitting on the tractor. So the project consisting in adapting his tractor by the provision of a homologating pneumatically cushioned seat. The solution identified was technically useful, guaranteeing a much more ergonomic seat with suspension and air system capable of absorbing vertical vibration and significantly increasing comfort. The seat is also adaptable to the weight and size of the driver of the vehicle. In conclusion, let me sum up a few final considerations. Although agricultural work is difficult and demanding, and workers are often alone, self-employed, not supported by an organized team, unlike other manufacturing sectors or industry, requiring a high degree of autonomy, in our experience, we have found that mechanization offers great help and technology is evolving rapidly. Nowadays, many machines are adaptable for people with various types of disabilities and disadvantages with a design for all approach, automatic transmission, automatic clutch, and so on, or can be integrated with remote controls or adapted. Tasks that remain unaddressable can be outsourced to workers while preserving the integrity of the company. It's possible to find organizative solutions. It is not true that a disabled person can only do office work. So it is crucial to invest resources in knowledge, to share positive experience, to support and spread these possibilities. Reintegration to an independent work restores the person's confidence and self-esteem. It's a great psychological help in returning to a full and satisfying relationship life. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. De Filippo. It's interesting and encouraging to see all these technical solutions that INAIL has found. You seem to have really great case managers to help reintegrate people into work after occupational diseases and accidents. Everyone has a different approach, but I think that was very interesting. And I see actually my colleague Magdalena, who just told me that she has a little bit of backache. So she prefers to stand up, which is also very good, just to change posture. Before I pass on the parole, I just wanted to thank all the panelists of this little session, just 3 presentations, but I wanted to thank all of you for your great contributions, and have a good evening. Magdalena, over to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bernd. Before we wish everybody a nice evening, yeah, I would like to say that yes, we did it. We reached the questions and answers session. Now you can ask questions to the speakers, but before you are going to do so, there will be a challenge if you want to ask this question. Are there any volunteers? Don't be afraid. I just thought that everyone who would like to ask the question first will have to catch the ball and then is entitled to ask this question. Okay, so are there any questions to the speakers? Maybe for those who are here in this room, or maybe there are questions online. Magdalena, are there any? I think that I would consider the first day of Colloquium very rich, very diverse, of a great, I would say, amount of knowledge we got today. And maybe we have to consider it, reconsider it, work on it. We have the whole evening to work on it, and maybe some questions appear tomorrow. So if there are no questions, then I would like to thank you very much for your dedication, for your professionalism, and for your great knowledge and this contribution of the first day of our colloquium. And both for those who are here and for those who are online, I would like to thank you very much for this great technical support that we did it. And there was actually a wonderful connection between us. I think you felt that we are like one big family, the real reality and virtual reality together. And before I will wish you a nice evening, I would like to inform that those who are here in Rome are very, very welcome to the dinner, which will start at 8 p.m. And for those who are not with us, unfortunately, we wish a very, very nice evening and a delicious dinner. And we will see tomorrow at 10 o'clock a.m. And I invite you all, so please join us tomorrow. Thank you very much.